Welcome to another edition of the Post Game Wrap. I'm Jared Johnson, and 73-65, Texas Tech fell in the season home finale to TCU, who has now won 7 of 8 and looks like a shoe-in for the NCAA tournament. I know Tech fans are going to like to hear this, but congrats to the Horned Frogs. It was a well-deserved victory. And there are some alarming trends here, and there are clear reasons why TCU was able to pull off the upset, as the Red Raiders were favored by 8.5, playing at home. Again, home finale, senior night, all of that, coming off a big win from Iowa State, at Iowa State. And that's my first trend that is obvious. We talked about it in the preview. Joe written me in one of these videos that, it's an alarming trend that Texas Tech has had these huge wins. We've made all this noise about, and rightfully so, about these huge wins and great resume that Texas Tech has in terms of beating Duke, beating Arizona at Arizona, beating Iowa State there. But this is the third time in a row that Tech has had a huge victory and followed it up with, a loss to a team that Tech was heavily favored to beat, whether it be, I mentioned Arizona State last time, and this one, UCF, which UCF's a good team. That's a tournament team, but that was a rough loss after beating Houston. And then now, again, TCU, a tournament team, but a team that Tech was favored to beat by 8.5 points after beating Iowa State there in Ames, which is very difficult to do. So my man, Mighty Joe, actually asked Coach McCasland in the post-game presser about that trend, and he said point blank that Tech's just not a physical team, and less so without JT, and that teams can push Tech around. He didn't say that exactly, but I mean, that's what he described, and that's what we saw against TCU, especially when Tech has had to exert a lot of effort, against a very good physical team in a game, previously with not that much time off in between. So that is an alarming trend when you extrapolate that to the NCAA tournament. There are going to be times where Tech, who he describes as a skilled, offensively team, athletic team, but not a physical team, they're going to run up probably against a more physical team. It'll take a lot of fight and effort, like Coach mentioned, to overcome that. And then they might be asked just 2 days later to do it again. So that's something to monitor for sure, to see, if that trend ends up really catching up to Texas Tech. Speaking of being pushed around, TCU was plus 14 on the glass. They were, I believe, plus 14 in second chance points. They were plus 16 in points in the paint. So, and they forced a lot of Tech turnovers. I mean, those are all strengths that we talked about going into this game for TCU. They didn't get, which was weird, and maybe this speaks to the lack of physicality from Texas Tech, but TCU did not get to the free throw line as much as they normally do. So that was the one thing that didn't show up. But Tech had, during that 3-game winning streak without JT, had dominated the glass. They had like an on average like plus 11 rebounding margin. So that was more than flipped against TCU, and their bigs really went to work against Tech, not just rebounding, but obviously also scoring. And to me, that was the biggest difference. Another alarming thing, though, was that 6.5-minute stretch in the second half when Tech, couldn't make a field goal, a shot from the field. So, look, I'm not saying I expected Tech to go undefeated and win the national championship after this 3-0 start against without JT. Nothing like that. But these trends are alarming and worth noting, because there's one thing I've learned in covering March Madness, and I've been doing it for years and years and years, and not just Texas Tech, is that your weakness will be exploited against good teams, and especially against good coaching staffs. I mean, they will find your weakness and they will just hammer it until you're beaten, and then it's just over, just like that. Your season's over. Which, of course, that's the beauty of March Madness, but it's also, it's a bit of a shock for some teams, and it could happen just like that. So, Coach McCasland mentioned he's, aware of those factors. They're going to work on it, and he believes there's an opportunity for them to get better. He mentioned Lawan Watts. I've said this before. I wrote about it even before JT went down, and especially now. Lawan Watts has to be a factor on both ends of the court if Tech's going to make a big run. They got to take some pressure off Christian Anderson, who's turned the ball over something like 12 times in the last 2 games against 2 of the top teams in the Big 12 in terms of forcing turnovers. But still, he needs some help, whether it be Jalen Petty, but also Lawan Watts could be that high post guy and do a good job of taking care of the ball. He can be a facilitator, all those things. Then that would really help the entire cause, really, just the team in general, not just the offense and Christian Anderson. So that's something to watch for. Mosley wasn't as big of a factor, Josiah Mosley against TCU, and I feel like Tech really needed him to be. So he's an inexperienced player. He missed a lot this year with injuries, so that inconsistency is to be expected. But just the margin for error without JT is just so slim, and we got spoiled on that 3-game winning streak, and I think kind of a slap in the face, kind of an awakening, so to speak, with this loss to TCU. But McCasland was upbeat. It seemed like on the court after the game, and then in the post-game press conference, I think he knows that he has a good team. He wants to keep the spirits high and all that. Tech has one more regular season game at BYU, and that's a 9:30 late night tip Saturday night out there in Provo. And they're licking their wounds a little bit too. They've had injuries, significant injuries, and some struggles, but still a very talented team and a tough place to win. So you'd really like to see Tech go out with the win in the regular season with the victory. And then the Big 12 tournament, for me, I don't see the tournament selection committee putting much value in the conference tournaments at all. It's been proven year after year. It seems like a lot of coaches that have been at Tech at least, they say the right things, of course, but they haven't put a whole lot of stock in those Big 12 tournaments as well. The national championship team was upset by West Virginia in they're in Tech's first game in that tournament. I think I don't remember last year how far Tech went because I just don't put a lot of value in these conference tournaments. I want them to be healthy. I want them to be fresh. So I hope really what I care about immediately is winning out in Provo, getting rested, and then, of course, getting a good seeding, for another March Madness run. But, it was a disappointing loss. There's no doubt. It was ugly. I wouldn't say it was a lack of effort overall, but Tech was out physical. There's no way around it. They got pushed around at home on senior night. So that did catch my attention. It's something we're going to have to keep tabs on. And, Tech has shown that it has a lot of fight in it. It's a resilient bunch. Let's see how they bounce back against BYU. But for now, I want to thank you for watching, and until next time.